Well, thanks for joining me, everyone, for another Find Out Friday. Today, we have some special guests. These are some internal team members that I brought in for a discussion on a big pivot that Google is doing with their website crawling and SEO needs. Why don't you introduce yourself? We have Olivier. You want to start?
Hi, I'm head of development at Rocksauce Studios. I've been at Rocksauce since 2014, and I'm involved in development of websites, mobile application, and backend systems.
Yeah, hi, I'm Jeff Flowers. I'm SEO product manager for Builder Home Site, and just been doing SEO for a bit.
You're the SEO Jedi.
Yeah.
We have to answer all of the SEO questions whenever we deliver any designs, and that's thanks to Jeff Flowers. So Jeff is the one that really kind of brought this big transition that Google is making at the beginning or within March, the March timeframe. He brought it to our attention and really kind of took the helm on advancing this. Do you want to describe a little bit what that transition is?
Yeah, absolutely. So what Google is doing is they are switching to a mobile first index, and starting in March, end of March, presumably, they will only crawl websites using their mobile smartphone user agent. And so if it's not on a mobile site, it's not going to get found, seen, or considered for ranking purposes.
Gotcha. So, I mean, I'm translating that in design, and a lot of times we try to simplify designs for mobile to make it more user-friendly. But if the content isn't on that page on mobile, then Google doesn't know that content exists on the website. Is that correct?
Correct. I would say desktop is dead.
Wow.
I think the name is a little misleading when it says mobile and first indexing. It should be really mobile only indexing.
Yeah.
That is a very accurate way to describe it, yes.
Do you have more points you want to point out about this transition, Olivier?
Sure. So it's not just content that the user sees. That is very important, but it's also content that's meant for the search engine itself. So you have to have internal links, titles and descriptions, robots.txt, all that information that needs to work well on mobile as well. And hreflang so that you have good results on the different SREPs across different regionalities. So a lot sometimes to adapt to that new way of crawling from Google, websites are going to need to restructure completely their infrastructure and the way sites are built rather than just a surface change on the content.
Correct, yes. And I would even extend that to all the resources, CSS, JavaScript, any of that. All of that must be accessible as well. Otherwise, they won't be able to parse through and render the mobile site.
It's also important to know the process of rendering from Google when considering the implementation of the mobile first indexing. And so that Google has two passes when indexing. It's going to index first kind of without JavaScript and look at the content. And if it deems necessary, it's going to actually render JavaScript in a second pass that can happen later on. So you would have first results in search engines that are based on the first pass of rendering. So you need to optimize for that. And there'd be a second rendering that you also need to optimize. And your rankings could change after the second wave of rendering.
Gotcha. So being in the industry for as long as you have been, what are your thoughts on this transition? Just personal takes. Do you feel good about it? Do you feel like it's about time? Do you feel like it might be a big mistake?
It's inevitable. Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, we all walk around with a laptop in our hand, in our pocket, and we have to pivot to mobile first, to thinking about how our sites look and perform on all devices. So to me, I think this is a good change. It will change how we do things, of course, but yeah, I mean, I think it's inevitable. So it's here, and we must adapt.
What about you, Olivier? How do you feel about this? Does it make your job harder, or?
Yeah, in a way. I think it's, if you consider what you're doing for users. And I think this update from Google is based on users, right? As you mentioned, as Jeff mentioned, this users are using mobile phones primarily, and you have way more mobile devices connected than you have desktops or laptops connected. And so Google is just looking at what's good for users and is in a unique position to very strongly encourage the industry to adapt to it.
Yeah.
Whether you like it or not, if you depend on search engine results, you have to do it.
Yeah, if you want to play in the game, it's something you got to think about.
Cool. So just off the top of your head, what should internal teams be doing to prepare for this shift?
I mean, in my mind, come at it mobile, all testing, design, product and vision management should be done from a mobile, perspective. That's obviously a pretty big ask, but I think this presents a lot of opportunities to improve our site.
I think one of the first tasks too could be run an audit on your website to see the differences between mobile and desktop at this time.
Mm-hmm.
Also check your search engine, because Google has been switching to mobile first indexing for some time, but in the past, what it did is it ran a comparison of the desktop version and the mobile version. If it deemed that the mobile version was ready, it would already have switched it. So maybe you don't have to do anything because Google considered it was good enough to switch to it. But if Google hasn't switched you yet, it's very possible that it's because Google deems that you would lose ranks in the search engine results because your mobile site isn't ready. And that is a strong indication that you need to put efforts and prioritize these efforts to get ready.
Yeah, that's 100% correct. And Google's already acknowledged that over 70% of the sites in their index are being crawled with mobile only. So there's the vast majority are already there and probably don't need to do anything.
What do you see as the biggest opportunities or challenges that are going to come with this change, moving to 100%?
I think the opportunities lay in the challenge, personally. I mean, convincing people, stakeholders, getting involved, and just improving the user experience is going to be the biggest opportunity and the biggest challenge.
There's an opportunity to, in terms of decision making, to sell changes to your teams internally. If you've been allowed by management, for example, to make incremental updates towards that goal of serving mobile users and having better content for mobile, but you haven't really had the go ahead to do more drastic and foundational changes to your site or application, this is the moment to sell it internally, because Google is saying you must.
Yeah, it's being mandated. All right. Well, just kind of to wrap things up, what do you think this means for the future of product and SEO? Like, what's coming after this transition? Does this give you any forecasting?
I mean, you could try to read between the lines of any Google announcement. This one they've been hinting at quite strongly for many, many years. Right after this is Core Web Vitals. Is a big update that's coming in May, and another thing that webmasters need to be aware of. But for the future, it's just right now making sure everything looks good on all the devices. You have a site that works and is fast.
I agree. The message from Google is pretty clear. It's mobile performance and accessibility. You need to look towards these three pillars to make sure your app is ready for 2021 and 2022.
Yeah.
Awesome. Any final thoughts that you want to say on the subject?
No, I mean, I think we've kind of covered it. Do the audit, check to make sure you're good to go. Keep an eye, track everything beforehand and after to see if you can troubleshoot or find problems and fix them.
And any new initiatives that come up, make sure that mobile is first of mind rather than something that will be solved for later.
Ideally, but
if possible. Olivier, what do you think? Anything else you want to add to the conversation?
Yeah, I think, and I speak with a development perspective, but in development, we've been talking about mobile first for some time. And in terms of development, it just means your website is going to load, it's going to be a responsive website. So you're going to serve the same thing, whether it's served to a desktop or mobile device. And everything is going to be optimized first for mobile and then for desktop. And I think that term that we've been using in development of mobile first, with that very specific meaning, now it's the time to apply it to every other aspect of building a website. So design, brainstorming initiatives, take the mobile use case into account first.
Yep. Totally
awesome.
Agree.
Well, thanks so much. We have it here from a design perspective, an SEO perspective, and a development perspective, what Google is chomping at the bits for and coming down really hardcore in May with mobile-only crawling. Thanks so much for joining me, guys.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.